Hey everybody, this is Jason Jeffries from the Alliance Project. Just wanted to go over some paperwork with you today. I have a couple uploads to do, so gonna be a crash course with a lot of info. So just hang tight. All right. So we got a paper here I'd like to go over. It talks about pretty much the whole background of Planet X and kind of what is and what isn't fact. So we'll go over it. Basically said Neptune and Pluto were discovered because of predictions derived from the differences between the observations and the predictions of Uranus, like the known data. Like when they use these words, it's essentially another word for like a prediction measure. Like the actual data and where their data showed the predictions, you know what I mean? So you can take measurements or you can predict, okay? So when they started to discover perturbations in orbits of known planets, they were saying, hey, there could be another planet out here, and they were guessing with predictions. And then when the planet turned to be there, they measured it, and they seen how close their predictions were. I'm about to go over some of that with you. When that happens, essentially you can see how far off you were, how wrong you were, how right you were, you know. Okay, so they obviously know that there's a demise of the dinosaurs. Something happens every 26 million years. They have a few theories they call one Nemesis, one Planet X. Both of them tie together. Most people actually understand that there probably couldn't be one without the other. So the idea was they just give you a little background. When they found Uranus, they started realizing that there was stuff in the data that shouldn't be there, essentially. So they started predicting that there was more planets behind it. I'm going to try to go through this slow enough that you can pause it and read it here. And they found Ceres and other, planets, basically doing a blink test over a course of period of time, just seeing what changes against the backgrounds of the constellations. If you see something moving across over a period of time. So the idea of this is just giving you an idea of how they kept finding the other planets, okay? And when they found those other planets, they never really stopped looking for Planet X, Planet 10, okay? Hope you guys can read over this. I would read it for you, but there's so much data, and I'd get so sidetracked, it's not even funny. Odd thing about this is they received a letter on September 23rd. There's that date again. And when they discovered Neptune, essentially. And they went, started measuring different aspects of it because they predicted it with Bode's Law and a couple other predictions. And they realized, oh, well, now we can see how close our predictions were since we predicted the existence of it and now we found it. So what you got here are two different scientists, two different numbers. If there's a star, they didn't guess it, but everything under their name, they guessed that number with their math. And then here's the actual data. So if you compare the actual data with this, you can see that they both were really close each time to the mass. One was under, one was over. But the one that would go under and over on one would go over and under on the other. It'd kind of compensate. This one usually had larger numbers, to be honest. And then you see the real actual data there. So yeah, you can see how very close they were. Okay. Then they also realize that the moons of Neptune are really weird, right? There's a lot of stuff going on with them. One goes out really far and like angled, and another comes in and it's almost like an atom, like I was showing you with other images of it. And then we got Pluto, that just its orbit is, it's crazy, you know. It essentially, I'll show you here. Here's the two predictions. The actual Pluto. Okay. So these guys were crazy too at one day, you know. They were talking about Pluto or Neptune or whatever, and it was Planet X, essentially, at their time. The odd thing is we can look back at Greek mythology, Sumerian mythology, all these ancient texts that have these names, these derivatives, and these stories of these 12 beings, the celestial gods, every time 12. And if you count 10 planets and then the sun and the moon, and then think about where were you living at this place, so the sun and the moon have to be counted into it. And then you count all the other celestial bodies in our solar system, there's 12. And there's 12 gods in every religion before this. And their names, Neptune, Pluto, Zeus, all that, you know. Jupiter, when you think of, just all you gotta do is just see where they adopted the name. The Greek took the Roman, and, you know, the Roman took the Greek, this and that, which both cited that they took them from the early and Sumerian cultures. Even the Egyptians did that. So, yeah. It's neat to see that, oh, wait, 200 years ago we discovered these things, but Neptune and Pluto and those names are like, wait, all right, something's starting to make sense here. Okay. So when they named them Pluto and Neptune, they knew the name of the planet before they got there, because the ancient texts tell us the names of these planets. Okay. But they go over and they realize that the Pluto has a point where it comes in closer than the average distance of Neptune. Okay. So it's at its closest approximation to the sun, it actually goes closer than Neptune's average. But it's supposed to be the furthest one out. So you can see it looks like something offset this. Okay. So I'll give you a second to notice that. The dates, that's between the two blink tests, you know. These all have references too, so you could look these paperwork up. This is from the Naval Observatory with Robert S Harrington himself. So that's like actual, you know, measurements and things like that. You're basically just showing you data here from over a different period of time, trying to give you a breakdown. And they're trying to give you an idea of the theories. Like, wait, as it gets away from one planet, or one planet goes around in a circle to get away from it, so its orbital power will be less. You know, the actual gravitational pull and the electromagnetic pull will be weakened, so there'd be less perturbations. But they're saying that, you know, that if this planet was there, or binary star was there, that it would disturb the inner outward cloud and throw comets around, which makes sense. They also talk about you know, the high content of iridium and things like that in the data that derives from samples that were taken from the Earth at different comet locations, you know, like one off the shore of North Carolina that helped destroy Atlantis, and one of the ones in the Gulf of Mexico that helped destroy the rest of the world as well. It almost seems like they were impacted there, targeted. Where the synthetic Merkaba stands out of the water there, like we noticed the Bermuda Triangle, whatever else. There's, I guess, a lot of people know things differently, go by different things, but that's what most of us would call it, I guess, is the Bermuda Triangle. But if you do your research, you learn that that's not at all what it was. It's not an anomaly. We know we can actually dig into history and find out what's going on there. But don't want to get off subject. Another anomaly of the outer solar system is the satellite system of Neptune. So they're trying to show you one's retrograde, one's prograde, and just weird stuff that you're like, One's eccentric, one's circular. They're both like, you have really weird moon rotations on Neptune. Okay. And then they talk about the Pioneer craft that they sent out. And at this time, they didn't receive the data back from the Pioneer craft of this object pushing it back. So you got to think of the data that we went over before, where it showed the Pioneer craft pushing itself backwards essentially when it approached this thing, because the electromagnetic force from Planet X essentially pushed it away, you know, like a magnet, with the poles angled right to push it instead of pull it towards it. And then let's go over the Nemesis theory real quick. They think it has a 500 to 1,000 year orbital rotation. Like one of their years is about 500 to 1,000 of our years, which would make sense. 1,000 of our years is, you know, they tell you that in the Bible, weird things like that. Like 1,000 Earth years is, you know, 1,000 or one God year, you know, things like that. So really interesting when you think about the Anunnaki of Nibiru. They show different parts of the sky that a guy went over for about 13 to 16 years. And Robert Harrington predicts that it came from the region of Scorpius at that time, while Gomes and Faraz Melo and Powell prefer Taurus. Okay. There's probably a reason we haven't heard too much about these people, and I will be sharing this paper next. But either way, they're showing very southern ecliptic, below the ecliptic constellations at the time. What he was literally saying, some of this stuff could definitely be disinformation if you really look at the facts, because I'll get to that in a moment. You'll realize that, all right, the Naval Observatory and a lot of these places, these things that they said they were going to have a telescope set up at, or this, that, and the other, well, they already had telescopes built there, and they had the, you know, and not only that, they'd need to be more further south at certain times and things like that. Once you really start to look at it, the data, you realize that there is disinfo out there about the real info. So you can't like prop up certain people and say everything that you know about them is true until you look at the paperwork, is all I'm saying. And I believe Harrington did die for this, okay? Whether people want to realize that or not, I really think this is the reason. Because he did not leave this alone. He just kept going into there, Planet X, okay? And now he's showing if this is the plane of reference, then it's down in that way, at that time. And then the idea of it is it goes this way or that way. So when you realize that, okay, I don't know how to explain it. So if you're standing in front of the ocean, okay, when you're standing in front of the ocean on a full moon, and the water is completely calm, you couldn't tell if the moon was above or below because of the reflection, right? You take a real good picture like that. Well, that's the same idea. They don't know. It could be completely opposite directions, but it seems to favor one direction, okay? So when they were studying, they sent the Voyager out in the opposite direction, and they sent the Pioneers out in the other. And then when they get a perturbation in the orbit, they realized what was going on. I'm going to show you the references there. So, hope you guys can read all this stuff, go over it, and realize, what was learned at what time, kind of document this stuff. And then I'll go over the next paper with you. Okay, I know I went over some of this with you before, but I want you to see it all so you can read it here, go along with it all at one place. Okay, so this right here, the squares are predictions of that Powell guy, which he seems to get a lot of. His name gets out there a lot, but not in our community. You don't seem to see much discussion of his work in the underground community, I guess you could say, because it seems like it's disinfo. It's saying it's way up here when everybody else in the data shows that it's most likely right there. So you can read these charts. The pluses are the very best fits and predictions. And that's it. It's just showing you the winter and summer positions, essentially. So there you go. People wanted coordinates and things like that. Trying to give you the old coordinates that they definitely had refined them to. Okay. I've also found this picture on the website, and I just wanted to kind of show you real quick. Thought that was pretty cool to see, because a lot of chemtrails we're having would kind of correlate with this. At least one of the objects being in that part of the sky here past couple years. Here's the last image I'm going to show you in this little video. It shows you the diagrams, the Pioneer 11 and 10, and gives you the dead star at 50 billion miles out and 4.7 billion miles out. It's the 10th planet that they're showing rotating around it. So they're giving you an idea how they would measure these things with the pull. And when a Pioneer 10 got so far out, it actually started to be pushed backwards. So I figured that'd be a better diagram. Thanks for watching.